University, and we're very glad to welcome all of you to this, the 10th presentation in our Spring 2024 Sustainability Research and Practice Seminar. We're very glad you're here with us, either in person in this room, or we have folks joining us via Zoom today. We are thrilled with the full program of presentations we have had this semester, and we have 2 more after today, every Wednesday from 12 to 12:50 p.m. If you don't have a copy of our program, you can find one on the Office of Sustainability's website on our homepage down at the bottom. So please join us the 17th and the 24th of this month for our future presentations. But today we are thrilled to welcome to Westchester University colleagues we've worked with the Post-Landfill Action Network. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Ramiro and Savannah.
I'm gonna click on the slides. One moment. We're back. Also moving the thing off, the cruiser off the screen because it drives me nuts. Hey everybody, my name is Ramiro. I'm the Director of Events at the Post-Landfill Action Network Plan. Thank you all so much for having us. It's been a while since it hasn't been that long, actually. We came here last year. But we love coming to talk with Westchester. So whenever we get the opportunity, we're out here and I'll have to see you.
Hi all, I'm Savannah, I use her pronouns, and I'm the Breakthrough from Plastic Pledge Manager at Plan. This is my first time at Westchester. I want to thank you all for having me here today.
Cool. So just gonna go over our agenda real quick, just kind of showing off what we're gonna do. We're gonna do introduction to the plan. So if this is your first time hearing from us, you get to know what the heck we do. We're gonna define the problem, linear consumption economies, like consumer culture, all of that. We're going to talk about our points of intervention theory and our theory of change. We're going to talk about the solutions on and beyond the campus. So we're going to be focusing a lot on the Beyond Waste Plastic Pledge because we have the luxury of having Savannah here with us. And that's just one of the areas that we have in our work. So about Plan. Plan is a nonprofit. We work nationally with hundreds of campuses across the US. Helping students do zero waste initiatives on their campus. So if you're a student on your campus and you want to get something started, we have a bunch of resources for you to help you get started. Oftentimes what I say about Plan is that we offer students the tools and resources that we wish we had when we were starting things on our college campus. So it's like we have 13 manuals ranging from you want to start a compost program? Cool. We work with the US Compost Council to talk about how to get that started. You want to start a free or thrift store on campus? We have communicated with Goodwill and several other like local thrift stores from different regions to talk about how to start a thrift store and how to like get that process going. You want to talk about reusable menstrual products on the college campus? Cool. We worked with like Luna Cup to talk about how to effectively start these kinds of programs on a college campus. And anything and everything in between. And if we don't have a manual on it, we have any one of our 10 full-time staff members or multiple other like part-time staff members that can have experience organizing on college campuses and can help you get projects started. Like that's the idea. How we started at the University of New Hampshire as a move-out program. So this was back in 2013. Plan has, last year was our 10-year anniversary. We're going into 11. That's huge for I'm not sure if y'all know about startups and nonprofits, but not many of them make it past 10 years. So we're at 11. We're beating the numbers here. And we started at the University of New Hampshire, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen, and who has been part of a campus college move out, seen the waste that is accumulated, the like dumpster fulls of perfectly good items that get thrown out because at the end of the semester, students don't need that back home. They're going back to their fully furnished homes. They don't need another couch, or they don't need like these, they don't have a twin size bed, so they don't need the sheets and covers anymore. So they just throw everything away because that's what's easy and that's what's convenient. Well, at UNH, when we started, we were like, hey, we see this problem. What if we gave students an outlet for that? And we started the Trash to Treasure program at UNH. And the cool thing about that program was it was the first one that was student-led in the country, and it was self-sustaining by the profits of the sale. So the money that was made from the sale was like enough to keep that program going on its own. So we didn't really need any funding from the university. And like universities, when you tell them, hey, we can do this for free, all you need to do is give us space. Space is a high commodity on all college campuses. But if you're like, we don't need money, they're a little bit more inclined to listen. And other campuses saw this and they're like, cool, can you teach us how to do that? And we're like, yeah, we can. And then slowly they were like, oh, also we want to get this other thing started on our campus and other things started on our campus. And we were like, okay, cool. There is people wanting to do zero waste initiatives on college campuses and no one is teaching them how to do it. And it's oftentimes when you're on a college campus, it can feel super isolating because you're like, I'm the only person who cares on a college campus. And it's like, no, you're not. Like maybe on your campus, you are the only person who cares, but I promise you there is a sea of campuses out there who do care. And there are other people who are just as passionate about this work as you are. So we started bringing all those people together and we started building and hosting our Student for Zero Waste conference. This is a picture of 2019. Should have gotten a picture of this past year's conference that we hosted at Swarthmore. So I will update that soon. We had a bunch of students from Westchester there. It was fantastic. I'm not sure if any of you had the opportunity of joining us, but it's always a lot of fun. And we bring students from all over the country together to the Philly region, because that's kind of where we're located, to talk about zero waste and the zero waste movement. And it's gotten to show people that they are not the only ones on their campuses or in their community that like care about this. It's like there is a network, there is a broader system of people who also care about this, who have probably faced the same problems you have, who have probably had the same like struggle, come up against the same roadblocks you have. And if we bring everyone together and we talk about that, and we have those conversations, we can further along this like whole zero waste movement, and we don't need to start things from scratch. And that's the whole idea behind Plan. You don't need to start an initiative from scratch. Someone out there has done something that you want to do. And we are going to be the people, the conduit, the people who are going to be like, cool, you want to start this program? It sounds really interesting. Here's a program that's very similar on a similar size campus with similar size people. Like, let's connect you so you can talk about how they got that done. So now Plan has a membership program. Westchester is a member. And you all have access to everything that I just talked about and then some. So with that, we have one-on-one project advising. Like I said, you get the opportunity to meet with all of our staff one-on-one to talk about different projects you have. Our event, that's me. Students for Zero Waste Conference is a great one that we host yearly. Beyond Waste leadership intensives. These are regional smaller events from our conference. And then the customized workshops, speaking events like this is what this is. And then we have the Breakthrough from Plastic Pledge, which Savannah will talk a little bit more about later, but she's the one that leads that. And then we also do Atlas Zero Waste. So if you look at the back wall over there on your way out, there is a bunch of posters talking about the Atlas assessment. That is something that Plant also does. It's a consulting program that we do with college campuses to talk about how do we actually achieve zero waste. And you all finished stage one, which is kind of the visioning of like, let's bring everyone together and talk about, in a perfect world, none of the like campus bureaucracy that we like always deal with. What does zero waste look like in a perfect world for you and your office? And it's kind of creating that bigger vision. And then stage 2 and stage 3 is like, okay, let's start narrowing down this giant vision into how do we actually achieve that. And one of our current full-time staff members, Grace, was actually one of the students that helped, along with a lot of other students here, and Brad and everybody. It's not a one-person effort, but Westchester's helped very like close to Plan's heart because we do have a full-time staff member from here. Okay. That's a lot. We're talking about zero waste. We're talking about a lot of big problems. Like, why is Plan's focus predominantly on college campuses? College campuses are great because they are spaces to innovate, and they're great places for young people to do things in a controlled area, like a testing ground. You know, it's easier to implement a change on a college campus of 15,000 students than it is to try to do that for like an entire city. Because like you guys run by your own rules in a lot of things. So it's a lot easier to manage these things. And then also the influence that universities have on their broader community. Like if a university is like, hey, we need to be zero waste, we need a waste provider to do compost. If you're the largest like source of waste in your community and your waste provider also provides for the rest of the community, if they're like, if you demand have compost, well, okay, cool. We're just going to do compost for the rest of the area too. And it just makes sense. So the influence that a university college campus can have on the greater community beyond just the campus it's a lot. So there's a lot of hope, and what we try to do with that is like extend beyond just the microcosm of college campuses. And also youth. It's the power that youth have. Any major movement in the US and in the world was started by young people, like has a huge influence by young people. Does anyone recognize any of the images up here? Does anyone want to shout out what some of these are?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta? Occupy, yeah, Occupy Wall Street. There's a divestment from apartheid, SNCC, this is against the Vietnam Wars. Like there's like everything here, They are student-led, they're youth-led movements that were started by people like you all. So defining what we are here to talk about. When you all think about zero waste, what do you all think about? What is zero waste in your all's minds? Oh,
It's minimizing the impacts of your waste while also like reducing the need for waste, like to even exist in the first place. It's like a holistic.
incredible. Yeah, holistic approach. Yes.
Being conscious about what you have and using what you have.
Being conscious of what you have and using what you have. Yeah, incredible.
Circular design.
Circular design. Ooh, you're getting ahead of yourself. You're getting ahead of me. Wait up, we're not there yet. Yeah, zero waste in a lot of ways is one interesting because like zero waste is different to a lot of people. And unfortunately, zero waste has kind of gotten commodified and I think there was a thing on greenwashing. It's a student that did the greenwashing poster around. It's kind of been used and coerced as a marketing term, unfortunately. But and in the university setting, when a university says, hey, we are going to reach zero waste, what they're typically talking about is a diversion metric. Diversion is a math equation of here's the amount of waste we produce, and here's how much of it we are not sending to a landfill or incinerator. So it's typically that's typically talking about compost, that's typically talking about recycling, that's typically talking about those areas. Here's where I'm gonna say some controversial stuff. We don't fully agree with diversion. Diversion is useful for college campuses to have as something to aim towards. But when you're talking about diversion, you're only talking about, this is a zero waste hierarchy, you're only talking about one segment. You're talking about recycling because it's the math equation, because it's literally numerators and denominators, like those are the things that you want to talk about. And it doesn't ever talk about any of the that's like all the quantitative stuff that you can talk about, but it doesn't talk about any of the qualitative aspects of achieving zero waste. So zero waste, when we talk about it, it is thinking about, I mean, even just the 3 R's that we were all taught, like it's reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycle is the third one for a reason. And we are thinking about rethinking and redesigning, reducing and reusing systems. Recycling and compost is kind of lower on the scale, but unfortunately, when a university is only solely focused on diversion, the way that math equation is set up, when you're reducing your total waste output, unfortunately, it can negatively impact your diversion metric, and that's not good for the university in like the publicity side. So we oftentimes try to get people to move away from the diversion metric wherever possible. It's not totally possible because it is kind of an industry standard, but when we talk about it, we want to make sure that we're giving this framing that diversion is not everything. you can reduce you can reduce your total waste, but your diversion metric can go down as well. And it's like, it's a little bit contradicting and it can get complicated. So someone just talked about the circular economy. I'm going to talk about the linear economy first. You got ahead of me. So yeah, waste. Waste, as we define it, is along a linear consumption model. So you can define this in a couple of different ways. This is how we personally define it. There's extraction. This is the getting the product out of the ground to make a good. Production, producing a product, distributing the product to places, consuming the product, and disposing of the product. You and I, as consumers, as the end users of products, we are here in the consumption and disposal. We kind of participate in distribution, but not really. We are here. And honestly, at the end of it all, we are currently, the whole idea of waste in this world is to keep us solely focused on the consumption of a good and to not think about any other point along this line. When you throw something away, you're throwing it away. Like, where is away? You don't know, you don't care. It's like, and that is purposely designed. That is like industry working in the marketing side of things. Disposal can be a lot of things, but when we're talking about waste, waste is not waste here at consumption. Like, waste is waste at extraction. If you're not thinking about where a product's going to go at the end of life, like, it's not fair for a company to be like, hey, you are now responsible for this thing that we made. Good luck. There's nowhere to like sustainably throw this away. And that's not fair to you as a consumer. That's not fair to the earth as a place that we need to throw these things away. And it's like not a good systems thinking. So we're talking about like the waste crisis. Everything that we just talked about, can be like brought down to and condensed into the concept of consumer culture. I like this image because it's I shop, therefore I am. What does that mean? It's like we as a society have been kind of defined, our personalities, who we are is defined by the things that we own. And that's not great because you are a much more holistic individual than what brand you're wearing or what the things that you own. So we also talk about this concept of planned obsolescence. I really like this quote. I'm gonna read it. Our whole economy is based around planned obsolescence. We make good products, we induce people to buy them, and the next year we deliberately introduce something that will make those products old-fashioned, out of date, obsolete. We do this for the soundest reason, to make money. This is Brooke Stevens, really popular in like the industrial design world. And this is a concept of industry exists solely to make money. That's fair. It's capitalism. It's what we live under, unfortunately. But products are designed that way. And like nowadays, we're talking about zero waste. I was talking about how zero waste is kind of been coerced. We think about the functional and systemic ways of planned obsolescence. Functional is like phones are now, everything is glued together. You can't really fix anything. Right to repair. A lot of those issues where it's like you, as a consumer of a product, there is no way for you to like repair your product. There is no way for you to, if something breaks, the solution is just buy a new one instead of like, let me try to fix something. And I really love the repair fairs that are going on or everything around here. But it's like, cool, like let's learn these skills, let's get these things so that they can last within the system a little bit longer. But then there's systemic obsolescence, which I think is really interesting because I was at a talk at U Delaware the other day, and one of the students was like, hey, that's kind of like what's happening with water bottles. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's like this year, the popular one has been the Stanley Cup. Last year, it was the, like every couple years ago, it was like thermoflask. Nalgene used to be super popular. And now all of these products that were viewed as like zero waste, the last one that you need to buy, are now viewed, have been coerced into, well, you need to buy the new one to keep up with like the trend. And like everyone wants this new one. And it's like, cool, now we just all have a bunch of metal cups in our cupboards. What are we doing? Like this was not, these were supposed to be forever. And now we just have a million of them. And they're just as single use as the old ones used to be, and it's like, wait a second. What's going on? What's going on here? And where does this stuff come from? We're talking about plastic, we're trying to talk about all this. And that's important because everything comes from the oil industry, the petrochemical side of things. Plastic is oil. Oil is bad because, you know, you burn oil and there's greenhouse gases, bad stuff. And ultimately we get into like, what we're doing with these products, these plastic products. And we're sold this idea of recycling, and there is ideally in a perfect world, we do reuse them. But like, has anyone ever seen this number? Does anyone know about what percentage of the plastic that has been produced is
10%?
10%? 9%? 5? I think you're closer. This is an older graphic. Currently, it's not. This graphic says 9. New studies have shown 5. And it's in that 5 to 10% range of everything that's plastic that has been produced has been recycled. The rest of it is just kind of pollution. It's out there in the world somewhere doing something, nothing useful, nothing productive, honestly making all of our lives worse. And there's like this graphic, and this one's super fun because it's like, we've all seen it. By 2050, there's gonna be more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's an awful thing to think about. And that's like, this is the stuff that escapes the system. When you talk about the system that does exist, what are we doing about it? We're throwing stuff to landfills, and landfills are great, but we are the post. But we're the Post-Landfill Action Network. What the heck does that mean? It's ideally we're creating a world that's beyond a landfill. Because landfills are flawed, because you're just taking everything that no one wants and you're just kind of throwing it somewhere. And like, unfortunately, it's not decomposing. Because they're systemically created to have things not decompose. Because unfortunately, when you have a bunch of stuff that no one wants, because it's like the waste and disposal stuff, when it decomposes, it doesn't become anything better. It becomes something worse. So it's like, okay, cool. What if we just keep it all and then it gets preserved forever? And then you create landfills that, you know, produce carbon dioxide and methane, and they also leach all of these fun liquids into our waterways that are great for us. They're not great for us. Yes.
Doesn't the methane get like harvested and used for power?
Sometimes. Not everywhere, and it's also not a perfect system. Like, some of it gets out. Dude, there are some landfills that do collect methane. And ultimately, like, that is good, but like, it is not a solution to the problem. Like, we still need to have landfills. Landfills still take up a lot of space that could be used for something else. And there's still other pollutants that come from landfills beyond the methane. But there are landfills that do collect methane, so you're not wrong. There's also incinerators. Has anyone ever been to the Chester incinerator, the Covanta incinerator in Chester? Very different from Westchester, I've learned. Incinerators are kind of this great idea. This like what for a long time was sold as this like magic solution to, we have all this trash. What if we turn it into something that no one wants? What if we turn it into something that everyone needs? Electricity, power. It's not great either. Incinerators, where are they put? You look Chester, Pennsylvania. It's predominantly Black, predominantly low like income area. The community surrounded by the incinerator is ridden by asthma and other respiratory issues. They are notorious for a bunch of violations. What happens when you burn everything? Well, it produces ash. Where does that ash go? Guess what? Another landfill. So it's not even getting rid of the problem. You're just creating another problem, because then that landfill is like worse. And who does that harm? Environmental racism. These things are not going to the wealthy neighborhoods. These are not going to areas that have a lot of environmental racism. I'll read this quote. Environmental racism is a disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on people of color. Environmental justice is the movement's response to environmental racism. So you look at don't go too far. You can drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You're at the largest incinerator in the US. the community has been, negatively impacted by it. And it's awful. And it's really sad to see. And with that, you can see the other industry in Pennsylvania where it's placed. It is placed in predominantly Black, predominantly brown communities, first-gen communities, low-income communities. That's unintentionally, that's unpurposely, because ultimately those are the people who don't have as much power, much say as what goes into their communities, because they don't have money and ultimately work under capitalism, linear consumption. Those who have money have more say, have more agency on saying what comes in, what comes out of my community. So this is a system that works, quote unquote, as we've designed it. This is like, where does your waste go? Like, waste colonialism was coined in 1989. It refers to how we, instead of dealing with our waste ourselves, we just kind of ship our waste to the global south. And then we kind of expect them to then deal with it. And then this is a fun little GIF. It shows you some of the hot spots. This is America, 1 million tons of plastic overseas every year. And if you look at the hot spots, none of them are in the US. They're everywhere else but here, because we don't want to deal with it, because we don't really, one, don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. Two, rather have someone else deal with it than us. And that is where we start getting like, okay, cool, this is sad, this is dark. What do we do about it? And I'm gonna pass it to Savannah to talk about.
Thanks, Ramiro. Wait, you've got,
Oh, no,
one more thing.
one more slide.
I can talk about it.
This is the reality. These are what we have right now is a bunch of patchwork solutions, landfills, incinerators, composting, recycling. All composting, recycling, we're not saying they're bad. I'm not saying don't recycle. That's not what I'm saying. Don't take that away from this. Still do your part, still do what you can. But ultimately, to solve this problem, we need to start at the source. We can't start at the end. So we need to start talking about post-consumer, post-product PCR. I only know acronyms. I don't know what they stand for. Post-consumer responsibility. We need to talk about attacking these things from the point of extraction instead of only tackling these things from the point of consumption, because ultimately consumption doesn't leave us a lot of room to do much. And if we can get everything to extraction,
Vote with your dollar.
you do vote with your dollar.
Don't buy the thing. The company is gonna be forced to change.
That is true, and that's important. And I like this. So you are on the right track. And yes, this is so true. Also not as simple as that. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna
Beyond-
talk about that.
Savannah's gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
So we envision a more sustainable, just world. I think now, this is our points of intervention now. So, like I said, we live in a linear consumption economy. This is the red line: extraction, production, distribution, consumption, disposal, and then we talk about points of intervention. The points of intervention model is this idea that you have somewhere that you can plug in. And it's somewhere that your interest, somewhere your strength, it's somewhere that it's something that you find interesting. And it can be in anywhere along this line. It doesn't need to be just here. It can be, okay, you can resist extraction, you can resist pipelines, you can resist all of these things. You can talk about redesigning products and forcing companies to rethink about how we're viewing these products. We can talk about renewing renewable energies, renewable power, moving away from traditional like the norm. Reusing products, recovering products from waste systems to give them a second life. Reclaiming products and like redoing things. So there's a lot of areas that you can plug in, and you don't need to do everything perfectly. Like no one can do it all. So the idea is kind of finding a spot and finding a place along the linear consumption model that you can plug into. And that, I do believe, is where I pass it on to Savannah.
Thank you. All right, so a lot of context about what we're currently dealing with, and what I'm going to specifically focus on is the tool that Plan developed that students, staff, and faculty on the campuses can use to intentionally and effectively eliminate single-use plastics in the long term. And this is the Break Free from Plastic Campus Pledge, or BFFP Campus Pledge, because that is a bit of a mouthful. This pledge is a guide, for campuses towards the long-term elimination of single-use disposable plastics. And I'm gonna give a bit of background on why we decided to do this. So, like I've been saying, it's a way to support those wanting to commit to these efforts. And while the efforts to eliminate plastics on college campuses and in the community may have started with plastic straws, as we saw a lot of, excitement around replacing straws in coffee shops with these paper straws and plastic straws and things like that. This pledge is meant to tackle everything from bubble wrap to the to-go-ware that you use across your campus. In creating this pledge, we really wanted to make it comprehensive, accessibility centered, and a single-use elimination policy that campuses can actually commit to. And with this, we created 4 steps providing campuses an outlined plan for eliminating plastics in a way that, like I've been saying, ensures accountability, equity, and longevity. So during this time I have right now, I'll be using the BFFP pledge more as a framing of action items that you can do to move your campus beyond plastics. And while the steps I'm about to talk about are numbered, they do not have to be done in a particular order. Every campus is unique in their plastic-free journey. And I'm here to hopefully provide you with different options and hopefully some inspiration for beginning a campaign on your campus. So before we dive into the 4 action items, this is a bit getting to your question of addressing the intersection of plastics and disability justice. So where do these things coincide? Well, in pursuing a plastic-free campus, campaigns need to be careful to not fall into an eco-ableism mindset. What this means. So to define ableism, it's the discrimination of prejudice against disabled people in favor of non-disabled people. When we apply that to the eco world, eco-ableism is a failure by non-disabled environmental activists to recognize that many of the climate actions they're promoting actually make life more difficult for disabled people. So when we apply these definitions to plastics, we can better understand that there are many single-use plastics without feasible alternatives that are necessary in the lives of disabled people, making total single-use plastic elimination unfeasible and at times discriminatory. So anytime we discuss a plastic-free future or culture or campus, we are referring to a future inclusive of necessary plastics. While the hope is that one day these plastics can be replaced with plastic-free alternatives, our current reality requires certain plastics be available to support the lives of millions of people. So keep this in mind as we go through these different steps. We're going to go through the Breakthrough from Plastic pledge. So starting off strong with step 1. Step 1 asks campuses to develop a plastic-free or zero waste task force. And this task force should be inclusive of students, staff, faculty, and administration. And these folks will be tasked with developing a roadmap to a plastic-free campus. So why do we start with the task force? Well, first, longevity. While a purely student organization targeting plastics is very powerful, and we've seen lots of different actions on college campuses start with the students, students have just around 4 years on campus. And that time goes by really quickly, as I'm sure some of you are noticing or will be noticing soon. So by including staff, faculty, and administration, you're really institutionalizing your efforts to continue to operate. Next is accountability. So the pledge does not prescribe goal dates to any of these action items. And because this is left to the campus constituents to create, you all know your campus better than we can. We can come and visit and talk with your staff, but at the end of the day, you are here experiencing the reality of your campus. So these goal dates of things that can be done on your campus should be left to the stakeholders accountable so that they can make the next steps in a timely manner. And finally, connecting to decision makers from the beginning is incredibly important. These are the folks that have the ability to create and enforce policies that you might not be able to. They can also provide really helpful context for moving decisions from idea to reality. Like Ramiro said, we are not encouraging, or not encouraging, but starting from scratch does not have to be the basis. You can get right in with the decision makers and lay out a plan to help you effectively move your campaign forward faster.
I was just wondering if you were talking about like different steps, and I thought that there would be a different slide for each step.
Yes, this is 2.
Yeah.
Yes. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Step 2 is identifying and eliminating. So this step calls for the elimination of all non-essential, non-compostable, single-use, a lot there, disposable plastics with the readily available alternatives. So, like I said, not every plastic has a readily available alternative, especially ones that address accessibility needs. So what we're asking is the task force, or maybe a student group, to conduct a holistic review to identify items that are, one, easier to eliminate, and two, harder to eliminate. So just to do it really informally right now, we'll shout out some single-use plastics that you know about on college campuses. See how many we can name. Yeah. Sorry? Bottles, yeah.
I would say plastic petri dishes.
Petri dishes, that's a good one. People don't really think about the labs.
Styrofoam to go containers.
Exactly. Wrappers, exactly. Those are everywhere. Anything else? Yeah.
Plastic straws.
Plastic straws. Exactly. So these things, as the more you think about it, I'm sure more will continue to pop up in your head, because as you continue to think about it, single-use plastics are everywhere. So things like bubble wrap in the packaging that procurement services order, or if you have tampons in your bathroom, the plastic tampon applicators that are on campus. If you go room by room, space by space, you're gonna find new single-use plastics. The labs is a great one as well. There's gloves, PPE that are used, and those things are essential. But we need to make note of them so that as we progress in plastic-free innovation, we're able to make those switch when the time comes. So that goes into why we want to identify plastics. They inform an action plan. So by identifying them, you're able to prioritize those that can be eliminated and replaced, and identify those that are going to take more research, and you'll have to keep sort of in the back of your mind when it comes time to replace them. Additionally, engaging in this work allows you to recognize barriers and really make an intentional effort about keeping accessibility in mind. So when discussing plastic elimination, as you may find, campus communities may be, and understandably so, worried about losing resources that they currently rely upon. So by conducting this assessment, you can assuage those concerns and really emphasize your commitment to accessibility and your intention behind your action. Third step is creating a procurement or purchasing policy, which provides framework for the long-term elimination of the plastics, both those provided by the institution and those provided by contracted food vendors. As we know on this college campus, there's lots of different food contacts here that are not under the purview necessarily of your campus. But when we implement this pledge on campuses, we want to make sure that those businesses are subject to the same policies as the ones at your campuses, because they are engaging with you, the students. They are here profiting off of you. So they should be subject to these same terms. So this step really builds off of the work of the assessment by focusing on systematically switching all the possible plastics to reusables or compostables, and keeping in mind the ones that don't contain PFAS. And PFAS is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances are widely used, long-lasting chemicals, the components of which break down really slowly over time and can have negative health impacts when ingested. And these are found throughout plastics and some bioplastics as well. So being really mindful about what we switch to. Yeah.
There's good news today that EPA is gonna be in regulating PFAS and drinking water.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
All right.
Just, yeah, good news.
I'm going to look into that. Later. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
I
Good news. Very exciting updates. I'll have to update these to include that. Thank you. All right, so. Okay, why policy or longevity? A policy is a written and enforced code of the work that you're doing, and it continues beyond your time on campus. More accountability. A policy establishes an expectation of the entire campus community, not just those who are aware of the plastic issue, so that everyone can go beyond plastics when it comes to purchasing, and provides clarity. If you ask everyone on campus to go plastic free, this is very vague, and it can leave room for eco-ableism to happen. So by providing a detailed policy, it can support every individual on your campus in understanding their role in eliminating single-use plastics. And then the last, but certainly not least, item establishes the importance of implementing campus-wide systems that facilitate proper collection and management of the non-disposable products. So why do we do this? we want to institutionalize change. So rather than expecting, like I said, just your eco-minded individuals to bring their own reusables with them, a campus that provides the infrastructure to support a campus community creates a more equitable culture surrounding sustainability by allowing everyone to participate. Additionally, it allows you to increase success. So bringing in reusables without proper sanitizing infrastructure or bringing in compostables without access to composting, it's going to result in a costly program that's not set up to succeed, and it's not going to make your administration more amenable to making these changes across the wider campus. So what we like to point to, for instance, are these pilot programs. So we see campuses initiate specifically to-go programs on a limited scale. These are known as pilot programs. And they do this by implementing the initiative in just one or a few dining halls. And while this is really valuable for addressing logistical challenges during the initial stages, get feedback from students, it can overlook the needs of other facilities as the program expands. Each facility is going to have its own challenges. And when we're looking at making these changes, we want to make sure we are using the same either program or the same company when rolling this out, so that we don't have multiple programs going on campuses that are going to confuse students about the different directives of it. So that's why we always recommend maintaining a campus-wide perspective when we implement plastic-free systems. So those are the 4 steps. Looking at them as a whole, I just want to take a second to clarify what the pledge is and is not. So the pledge is a leverage tool for our campus community to hold an administration accountable, but it is not required to be completed prior to a campus signing on. So what that means is the 4 steps, those don't have to be done. You don't have to have a task force. You don't have to have identified all the plastics. You don't have to have these campus-wide systems or even a policy in place to sign on to the pledge. As we saw, accountability is built into the pledge itself so that the pace can be determined by the university. And so that's why we don't require all steps to be completed. It's more of a commitment. Next, it is an outline of broad steps for a campus to become plastic-free, but it is not a plastic-free implementation plan. Like I said, you know your campus better than us. And the steps are a guide to tackling single-use plastics that set you up to create an action plan that is right for you. We cannot prescribe an action plan to your campus, but we can help in producing it. Finally, it's a commitment from a campus to working towards a plastic-free future, and it's not a deadline for a campus to be plastic-free by it. At this point in time, there is not a campus that can call itself a plastic-free campus. The pledge is meant to encourage your campus to take steps towards that future. And we know that this is a long-term goal, and it's going to be long and difficult, but it's not an impossible task. So now that we've looked at the pledge, I'm going to zoom out to some case studies of campuses that have signed. We currently have 19 campuses signed on. Like I said in the background, this was created in 2019. It took a bit of a hiatus over 2020, and this is kind of our unofficial, official relaunch of the pledge coming back for campuses to sign on to. So, on campuses. Looking at Eckerd College. So Eckerd is a private liberal arts college with around 2,000 undergraduate students in St. Petersburg, Florida. They signed the BFFP pledge in 2019 after a group of students connected with the plan and decided they wanted their college to be a part of the plastic solution. So after signing, we talked with their students, and reflecting upon their success, they pointed to a few key areas that they really feel brought them to their college signing on. One being that they intentionally built a team. They tapped into friends who shared passions, the Office of Sustainability. They connected with professors in the marine science department, and then they continued to recruit new members along the way as well, planting the seeds of new leadership each step and preparing for campaign longevity. Another part of their process was assigning roles, and by doing so, they assigned roles that align with students' skills and passions. So this goes back to the points of intervention theory that Ramiro was talking about. Everyone is going to bring different skills and different passions to their role. And when you're building your campaign, you want to align students with what they care about. So, for instance, they knew that they needed an admin team, a social media team, an events team, and an outreach team. So students were asked to join the team that best aligned with 1, their skills, 2, their passions, and 3, their capacity for the work. Not everyone has enough time to be leading a club, And that's fine. We understand that. You can take a supportive approach in this as well, and that is so meaningful and so helpful. Continuing with the Edward story, in developing their campaign, they were really adamant about engaging partners. So they partnered with multiple on and off campus groups. This allowed them to tap into additional resources. So things like scientific data on microplastics surrounding the campus, they got from the marine science professors. They got a lot of institutional support and advocacy from the sustainability office, and they had some strategy guidance along the way from him. So when it came time to making the pitch, through tablings, events, petitions, and assistance from all of these groups, the team was able to generate enough excitement to draw the attention of the campus president. When it came time to make the pledge, they could demonstrate widespread support, point to a cost benefit that their team had conducted to show financial feasibility, and they connected the pledge to Everett's values. So along the way, they also met with administrators to address their concerns and ask for their support, and this led to a successful signing of the pledge. Next up, a slightly different take of a campus that signed the pledge and then took action. So this is the State University of New York's College of Environmental Science and Forestry, or SUNY ESF. It's a public research facility in Syracuse, New York, with an undergraduate population of around 1,600 students. So their college signed the pledge in 2020, and this is what prompted their campus community to action. They had a really ready president that was ready to sign, and they figured, we'll get on this, we want to sign it, make the commitment, and now we'll take next steps. Not to say that students were not instrumental in that, absolutely were. So in response to the pledge signing, students, staff, and faculty created and adopting what they called the Green Purchasing and Break from Plastic Policy. This policy banned the expenditure of state funds to purchase most single-use plastics for use on campus or at college events, except for accessibility purchases. So not only did they release that policy, which offered really clear expectations of their staff, but they also offered plastic-free solutions in the form of a green purchasing guide for their campus community and a reusable plate program so that they could support their community in making the switch away from plastics. The last one we're going to look at is a group called Plastic Free Emory at Emory University. So Emory University is a private university in Atlanta, Georgia, with around 7,000 undergraduate students. Plastic Free Emory, their specific student group, was founded by an at the time senior who knew that they would not be able to convince Emory's administration to sign the pledge within their last year. They had 1 year left on this campus. So she and a co-president made a very concerted effort to prepare the campaign for leadership transition. So how did they do this? Simple things like keeping all notes, documents, files, in a shared Google Drive ensured that the information was consistently passed on to new students who would be added to the Google Drive each year. They also developed an orientation consisting of videos and readings to educate the future team on the campaign and establish member expectations. They required all new members to complete this orientation. They also made a really concerted effort to diversify the ages of their leadership. So they kept alumni on as advisors and ensured that first years and sophomores were represented on the leadership teams each year, so that it wasn't just a group of friends who were seniors, they graduate and the club goes with them. They had the implementations for leadership set up. Additionally, recruiting was a constant effort, and they allowed and encouraged students to join their efforts throughout the academic year. So rather than keeping their recruiting siloed to fall and spring, at each event, they were trying to draw students in to engage in their efforts. On top of this, they established anchors that would guide them and future members and leaders. So these items included an annual progress report to be created by the team and released to the campus community at the end of each year, holding them accountable. They created a plastic-free Emory information packet. This was more of an internal use, and this was to be reviewed, updated, and distributed to new members each year so that they could be grounded in what it was requested. And they established an annual event that would make their efforts more recognizable by future students, as this was held each year. So through these practices, the co-presidents not only assured Emory's administration of the longevity of their organization, but they also assured themselves that in the pursuit of other endeavors post-university, the work that they started at Emory would continue on, which it does today. That senior graduated, the co-president is now a master's student at Emory and serves as an advisor to this group. So, in each of these cases, as with any of the BFFP campus pledge campaigns, the goal really goes beyond the president and chancellor's signature. So while this is a great way to affirm a campus-wide commitment, there are other actions that can be realized within a plastic-free campaign. These things include policy and infrastructure changes, culture shifts, and cultivating organizing skills as a student. So, in pursuit of a plastic-free campus, you can make tangible steps toward policy and infrastructure changes. You can work with your sustainability office, an academic department, or other students to create or update sustainable procurement policies. These can be applied at individual student group levels, student government level, or campus-wide level. No matter where you can implement them, getting a first draft really goes a long way. You can also begin or expand the availability of reusable infrastructure. So as we mentioned earlier, implementing reusable programs requires intentionally considering current and then necessary infrastructure. An ideal campus reusable to-go system flows like this. It starts at a centralized washing facility. These are then distributed to retail dining facilities, which go to the students who drop them off at student drop-off centers. And then after those student drop-off centers, back to the centralized facility. So start to consider what is needed to make this or a version of this possible on your campus. Would you need additional staff to service the drop-off locations? Is there a space? Like we said, space is a hot commodity for a centralized facility. By working through these questions, you can start the process of creating that reusable reality. Another goal of this work is culture shifts. As much as it's great to put in the tangible infrastructure, changing people's minds as well is so important. The plastic industry has made a concerted effort to create a culture of disposability, as we talked about earlier. Like we said, plastic and single use is cheaper on their end, brings in more profits as consumers are constantly having to buy new. And it also led an ad campaign that has shifted the onus of waste from the producer to us, the consumers. By working towards a plastic-free campus, you can challenge the notion that single use is the norm. Introducing students to the concept of reusability can go beyond bring your own mug or cup or straw, but talking about requiring a campus to support reusable infrastructure can prompt them to reevaluate single-use items both on and off campus. Further, you can educate others on the inherent link between fossil fuels and plastics. With over 99% of plastics being made from fossil fuels, think about when a campus commits to divesting from fossil fuels. Shouldn't they also be committing to divesting from plastics? Finally, through a plastic-free campaign, you have the opportunity to cultivate organizing skills that can be applied post-college and beyond. You'll learn to navigate bureaucracies, which, like we said, are unfortunately everywhere. You'll learn how to mobilize students and build a community of passionate people. These people can become lifelong friends. And you'll better understand how to campaign for change, which can be applied to any community you live in. So whether it be organizing a local cleanup, fighting against an incinerator proposal in your hometown, or implementing a reusable to-go system at a local restaurant. The skills you hone engaging in a plastic-free campaign on your campus right now will benefit you and your community for years to come. So, to end, that was a lot of information and ideas and paths for change. And as we come to an end, I want to make it clear that these things are not being asked of one individual. As individuals, we make up a system of collective power that can fight back and that has been fighting back for decades. Our movement is continuously building through the actions and contributions of advocates, scientists, engineers, educators, laborers, artists, and students. Each of these is essential in constructing a plastic-free future that is accessible, equitable, and sustainable. So the quote on the screen is something I first heard from Plan as a student organizer. I continued to hear it from Plan while I attended their workshops as a sustainability coordinator post-graduation. And now I hear myself saying anytime I get to talk with campuses. It's a reminder not only of our need for community, but also of our potential as a community. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. Together, we can fix this broken system. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Just to kind of close us out, a lot of what I talked about earlier, you all are member campuses. You have access to everything that we offer. It's like joining our members, join our network and like learn about what other campuses are doing across our network. You have a resource library, which is like 550 case studies from like everywhere. So it's like you can find more than 550.
I don't know, it's a lot.
A lot. It's our entire resource library. It's like every case study that you can ever think about. It's like cool, and then you can narrow it down. We're like, I want to learn more about campuses on the East Coast that are smaller than 5,000 students who like work, who are private or public or whatever. So there's like a lot of really great opportunities for that. You can join our events with me or like this. You can do one-on-one advising. You can join and start your plastic-free pledge on your campus. You can do Atlas and, do beyond stage 1. Right, come on. And you can connect with other campuses and other change makers on your campus. You can join our on the member hub. It's community.postlandfill.org. If you want to learn more about it, we're going to be in the back table and chat. We'll teach you. You have a community hub, gives you access to all the resources. And we have time for questions, but also I know we ran over a little bit. So if anyone needs to head out, you can question.
Yeah.
So instead of doing all this, can't we just reinstate like religious doctrines such as Lent or fasting to reduce the stuff we consume?
Yeah, so what we talk a lot about is at the individual level, we can only do so much. When we look at what plastic polluters are producing, it's a lot more than we can handle. In our plastic-free manual, we go into some of the statistics, and Coca-Cola currently produces around 7.5 million tons of annual plastic. That's something that an individual or even a large group of individuals can't do on their own. We don't consume 7.5 million tons of plastic at the individual level. So we're trying to shift the work of plastic reduction back to the folks who are producing the plastic.
Yeah, but we're not entirely blameless either. As I said before, we vote with our dollar.
Right.
And we allow them to waste all that stuff. Can't we just like form a religious movement against materialism?
So there is a movement. There is the Break Free from Plastic movement, is an actual fun organization. There is a movement. They do have a website actually too about like people and organizations who are currently engaged in this work. It is a lot of people. And there's a lot of fighting to be done. And like you said, a lot of it's done with the dollar. And right now, the plastic producers, they've got the dollars. They've got the dollars that this movement cannot really match at this point, and that is something that we can start to shift. Yeah, it's happening. It's really encouraging to check out their website and I'm going to talk about it. Yeah, right there.
We are at 1 o'clock and some people have classes that they have to get to. Ramiro and Savannah will be here for another hour at the table in the back. So for now, please join me in thanking them one more time. And continue enjoying the snacks and the displays, get some great used clothing at the thrift shop. And thank you all for coming.
Oh, no. Well,